Hi, everybody. Professor Hatcher here. Sorry that we have to do this particular unit, or at least today's part of the unit, virtually, online. But I wanted to do a quick overview of mapping, which I think is a really exciting, interesting area to explore. And I hope that you'll find a way to use mapping in your own project, mostly and so that you have a chance to play with it and learn about the power of using maps and visual information to tell stories can be a really effective way to engage with your audience. So I wanted to take some time with this unit to show you some of the resources available to you and help get you thinking about how you might be able to use maps in your own project. So I'm going to open up the Canvas module for this week, and I'm just going to invite you to follow along with me as I review some of the different resources that I've found over the years as far as looking at maps, both maps presented by, or excuse me, maps put together by professional journalists and maps created by students in this class and maps created by myself. So I would encourage you to do what I'm doing, which is to open up your Canvas unit for this week, the week 9 mapping module, and follow along with me as we look at some of these resources. Of course, it's no surprise that big news organizations like the New York Times are really good at creating maps, and they've really got it down and found a lot of effective ways of using maps to tell stories. This one's from early in the war in Ukraine, and just using different maps to show the progress of the war and to show how things are evolving. It's got an area of detail. An important thing to keep in mind when you're talking about maps is to say where the images come from. Just like photos, maps, and any kind of visual element need captions to say where the information is coming from and to tell a little bit of the story of the image itself. So the war in Ukraine, looking down and going through and telling stories. You can see it's also written for the web with subheads, but using the consistent same colors to show the two sides and to just tell the story of what's happening. You can also use maps over time to show how things have changed. Pretty effective map. So look through this and think about the role that that map has in telling the story. Of course, we all grew painfully familiar with how maps were used to track what was happening in the United States during the COVID outbreak. And it's still going on. This one, was updated in October of 2022. And you can see how this map is interactive, meaning it's not a static map that's something you just look at. So you can drill down and look at your particular county or where you're from or other places, and you can sort of see how things are going. So it's got different ways of viewing the pandemic. These are places that, looking at the percentage of people that are vaccinated based on county by county breakdowns, people over 65, so a different way of viewing the map, and people who have been boosted, so looking at people who've gotten boosters, so looking at vaccinations and vaccination rates. We'll look at graphics later. That's another way to tell stories visually. I love this map. I think it's fascinating, which is called, and literally called, an extremely detailed map of the 2020 election. And you can look through it and you can see how people all across the United States, with some exceptions, voted in the last presidential election. So you can drill down, you can search by your own zip code, and I invite you to play around with it and poke around. You can look and see how people did in Duluth. You can even look and just see how UMD voted in this election, because UMD has its own voting district. So you could drill right into that. And I could find UMD, see how UMD voted. And you can see UMD was 64% for Biden in that last election, as one example. So lots of powerful ways to talk about, to tell stories using maps. This is a kind of mapping program called Esri, and we even have some students in the class who are familiar with it. It's a mapping program that you can use and learn how to use here at UMD. We used to have the Geospatial Analysis Center here on campus, but these maps, and we'll talk more about them, are maps that allow you to tell stories using maps, create timelines using maps. It's a pretty powerful way to use mapping to tell a story. And you can click on any of these and engage with them, and you can see how they are interactive and engaging. And if you're really interested in this, UMD has a number of classes that teach the basics of mapping using these programs. And you can see how it's not just a map, it's a story. And you scroll through on the right, and each screen shows you a different place on the map, but also uses images and words to tell a complete story. Pretty amazing. And I encourage you to click on that link and play around a little bit. If you want to learn how to use maps, this is kind of fun. How to make an illustrated map in 8 steps. It's pretty basic, but it kind of gives you the sense of the steps you can go through to create a map. So those are examples of professionals that use maps, but students have used over the years in this class maps in a lot of different ways to tell their stories. Sorry, I already clicked on that one. And I've used maps myself. I went on a bike trip a few years ago, and I kept a blog about the trip and about the journey. And each day I wrote about the trip. But I also used images and maps to track my journey, which was pretty fun. And I used it as an opportunity to play with mapping tools. So I published the article on a site called Medium. These are the stories about the bike trip and each step along the way. And I also was able to, and we'll do this in class next week, to take pictures with my geographic tags on the images so that I could have those images load on the map that I created. So I made this photo album of my bicycle trip. There's all the pictures from the trip. And I created a map using Google Maps, and we'll learn how to do this next week, and placed images at different places along the journey, and they loaded automatically in those places. It was pretty fun to play with. And you can do something like that too. As I mentioned, UMD has a place called the U-Spatial program, and they will offer instructor-led workshops for students interested in learning more and walk you through how to create your own maps. So if you're interested in learning how to use that, let me know and I'll connect you with them. It's a little beyond what a lot of people will do, but if you want to go in that direction, you can do it. There was a project done by UMD's journalism students called One River Many Stories that used a map. I'm not seeing that map right now. That website must be down. There is an example of a tour of UMD's campus using ArcGIS. So you can click on any place around the campus, or I don't think you can do that. You scroll through and it kind of takes you through a tour of the campus using the map and using information that you assemble. So imagine just a straight written article that just listed the different places on campus. Wouldn't be perhaps that interesting or that effective or that engaging, but a map coupled with that text can do a pretty amazing job. We'll talk more about all of this, but if you want to get started early, Google has all kinds of tools and tutorials to teach you how to use all the different tools they have available. And it's pretty great. And we'll share those tutorials with you as we work on maps in class on Thursday. That page is down too. But in 2 minutes, this little video here shows you very simply how to build a map using Google Maps. And this is exactly what we're going to do in class on Thursday. But take a minute and watch this short video. I I think that those are the examples I wanted to show you. As I said in class on Thursday, we're going to create our own simple in-class maps just to give you a sense of what's possible. The last thing I wanted to show you is the assignment that you're asked to do today. So let's go there. Thinking about mapping as a tool, very simple assignment. First, I ask you to do what I just did with you, is go through and look at all of the different examples of maps and resources on this week's module. And then I want you to go online yourself, out to websites, news sites and other sites, and see if you can find examples of those sites using maps and using them effectively. And then I want you to do a couple of quick things. I want you to post a link to a map that you found online. I want you to say what you think of the map and whether you liked it. Just tell us a little bit about the map. And I want you to analyze it a little bit and say, okay, why is this map effective? Or if it's not effective, you can say that too. But what makes this map an important tool in helping to tell this story? And then the final thing I want you to do is to talk about how you can use maps in your own project. And post that into the discussion. Sorry, that was a little clunky. That's it. That's what I want you to do. So review the different examples of maps, start thinking about how you can use maps yourselves, and look at some of the different resources, and then go out and find examples of maps yourself and analyze them, and then thinking about how you might use maps in your own project. And then when we get together in person on Thursday, we'll create a very basic map together in class. All right, that's it. I hope you're doing well, and we'll see you in person on Thursday.